my god, what the fuck? Hi, hello, it's Maya. Welcome back to my channel. I need to put my Fitbit back on. Well, I said I would try to keep up with doing this, and we're here, so hi. We're gonna do a recap of everything I watched in the month of March. I'm also just gonna like squeeze in April as well because it's the end of April and a lot of things happen in my life, and when am I ever consistent with YouTube? Let's be honest. Anyways, there's probably gonna be a scene change or outfit change halfway through this video because I only have time to film for like 30 minutes this morning and I'm gonna have to do the other half tomorrow morning. I'm also gonna try really hard to not like dwell too much on each of these movies just because I am doing 2 months in one. There's a lot of freaking movies and like some of them I have a lot more to say. Others, really all I have to say is like, it was alright. So I just don't want to like take up too much time with that. If you're new here, I'm guessing you're not. Hi. I watch typically like 95% horror movies and I just like to review them on the internet for you guys. I'm not a critic. Half the time I don't know what I'm talking about. And I kind of just make faces and go on mini tangents about things. So yeah, I don't take things like too seriously around here. I do watch other things, by the way. Like I know I said like 95% horror movies, but I do watch other things like here and there. I just don't like to log them because I'm not passionate about movies. I'm just passionate about horror movies. And speaking of like logging things, I think I forgot to mention in my last video that I do have a letterboxd account. So if you want to follow me on there just to see like what I'm adding to my watch list or what I've been watching recently or anything like that, you can do that. I'll leave a link in the description box. And with that being said, let's get into it. On the 5th of March, I watched, I'll start with March so I don't have to say that every time. On the 5th, I watched Sick. While quarantining at her family's lake house during the pandemic, Parker and her best friend are threatened by an unexpected visitor. I'll also just put up my ratings on the screen as well so I don't have to say that every time either. But yeah, this was actually like significantly better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't really hear too much about it. All I knew going into it was that it was like based during like peak pandemic times. I didn't hate it. It was actually pretty good. I gave it a 3.5. I don't really think it brought like anything too different to the slasher genre. It was just like a very basic slasher movie. I think the whole point of it was just that it was one of the first movies that we got based within the last 3 years and all that bullshit that happened. There was like some corniness at the end and you could tell that the movie kind of had like a certain agenda that it was trying to push, like when it comes to COVID and everything. But like nothing that I don't necessarily disagree with, so that wasn't really an issue for me. On the 5th, I watched Halloween. 4 years after her last encounter with the mass killer Michael Myers, Laurie Strode is living with her granddaughter and trying to finish her memoir. Myers hasn't been seen since, and Laurie finally decides to liberate herself from rage and fear and embrace life. However, when a young man stands accused of murdering a boy that he was babysitting, it ignites a cascade of violence and terror that forces Laurie to confront the evil she can't control. So I'll start this off by saying that out of the 3 recent Halloween movies, this definitely wasn't the worst. It wasn't Halloween Kills, so take with that what you will. By that I'm saying Halloween Kills was so fucking awful. I wish I could bleach my eyes and erase that memory from my brain. I get that this was supposed to have like a really strong like romance plot point, but overall it was just really disappointing. I didn't like it. I am not a fan of any of the 3 recent Halloween movies, and that sucks. I didn't really care about like the new character Corey that much, but then again I didn't really care about anybody in these movies. Spoiler alerts here, I didn't really like how the movie focused more on like Corey and the weird liking that Michael Myers took to him. And like I kind of get why they did that, simply because they implied that like Michael Myers' evil transferred over to Corey and then that's why Michael Myers was able to die. And even though Corey died, well, because Michael Myers is like the embodiment of evil, Corey technically won't be able to die, and then it's just gonna continue the whole Halloween movies. Like I think they kind of did that so it like left the door open for future movies if they do ever want to like branch off of it and not just like continuously like remake things, which like at this point I'm tired of the remakes and the sequels and the prequels and all of those things. We're just recycling things, okay? Whatever. I just think they could have done something different with the storylines. They could have had less annoying characters. They could have had characters make way better decisions. And overall, yeah, everyone just could have been less annoying. On the 8th, I watched Speak No Evil. On a vacation in Toscana, a Danish family instantly becomes friends with a Dutch family. Months later, the Danish couple receives an unexpected invitation. It doesn't take long before the joy of reunion is replaced with misunderstandings. Alright, so this movie gave me really mixed feelings. To start off, do I recommend this? Absolutely. It's definitely different from like your traditional type of horror film. I mean, I feel like a lot of like European films tend to shift in different directions and do something a little bit different, which like I do appreciate that. I love when movies kind of go to the weird places and aren't afraid to make people uncomfortable. Like I'm a big fan of that because it's just like a breath of fresh air. I love how I said I wasn't going to talk too much about these things and I'm just like going all in. Anyways, I love the setting and where this takes place. I did not love the parents' stupidity in this, and if you watch this movie, you'll 100% agree with me. I think everybody does. They made very poor decisions. They had every opportunity to leave, and that fucking stuffed animal. It just felt like they gave up and they let themselves get like walked all over. And another thing that really angers me is that as a mom, I don't think, well, not as a mom for me, with her as a mom, I don't think that she like tried anything to protect her child. And I'm not a mom. And even I would try harder than her. So I just want you all to watch it and like feel my frustration as well. How about that? I also watched Resurrection on the 8th. A woman's carefully constructed life gets upended when an unwelcome shadow from her past returns, forcing her to confront the monster she's evaded for 2 decades. Y'all, this movie, first of all, let me just say that Rebecca Hall has like an 8-minute uncut monologue and she fucking killed that, so love that for her. Yeah, what do I say about this? It's very obvious, but then again, it's also not, and I think that's the direction they were going. I do think it's a very good social commentary on emotional abuse and gaslighting. It does a very good job at making you uncertain if you should take the movie like metaphorically or literally. And so I think in doing so, it also like makes the audience question like, are we being gaslit? It's a weird one. On the 11th, I watched Revenge. Jen is enjoying a romantic getaway with her wealthy boyfriend until his 2 sleazy friends arrive for an unannounced hunting trip. A big trigger warning for an SA scene. I kind of went into the movie expecting that was going to happen anyways. Like I kind of figured that's what was going to be what triggered her whole revenge escapade. However, weirdly enough, as I'm getting older, I'm finding that those scenes tend to affect me a lot more, which it's whatever. I'll still watch it. But yeah, there's definitely some points where I was like, I'm gonna just sink myself back into the couch and avoid this. Other than that, yeah, it's a typical revenge movie. I will say there was one injury that she got where I was just like, that is completely unrealistic, and it really took me out of the movie for like 10 minutes. Like I was having a whole ass discussion about it because I'm just like, this is what? It really just think of like the typical I Spit on Your Grave movies. That's the vibe it has, kinda. Done a little bit better. On the 12th, I watched Buried. My voice is getting groggy already. Paul is a US truck driver working in Iraq. After an attack by a group of Iraqis, he wakes to find he is buried alive inside a coffin. With only a lighter and a cell phone, it's a race against time to escape this claustrophobic death trap. So I never thought I'd actually like get around to watching this movie or getting myself to sit through it because I literally thought that it was just going to be Ryan Reynolds sitting in a coffin the entire time. And that's exactly what it was. And I watched it. And you know what? It wasn't that bad. On the 14th, I watched Scream 6. 4 survivors of the Ghostface murders leave Woodsboro behind for a fresh start in New York City. However, they soon find themselves in a fight for their lives when a new killer embarks on a bloody rampage. I want to give this a 5 out of 5 so badly, and like realistically I should, but I kind of just like don't want people to think that I'm sucking Ghostface dick. I'm just like a big sucker for the Scream movies. I did see this in theaters, so maybe that's also why I have like a little bit of a bias towards it, because it just gives you a whole different experience. That being said, I still think it was really good. Like the first 2 are my favorite, and this one is like kind of pushing in there. It might be like Scream, but then Scream 6, and then Scream 2. Why did I... It was just really fun, and I love like the self-awareness that these movies have. Like it's so cliche, but then also somehow like really original, and I think they just kind of keep getting better. I actually really liked Sam and Tara in this. Like I really didn't give a shit about them in Scream 5. I feel like they're a lot more like fleshed out in this one. So maybe I just felt more connected to them like that. Whatever. It's a good movie. On the 17th, I watched Cube. A group of strangers find themselves trapped in a maze-like prison. It soon becomes clear that each of them possesses the peculiar skills necessary to escape, if they don't wind up dead first. So I can definitely see why this has such high ratings, and I kind of feel bad for giving it a 3, but I don't know. Like 3 is just very, very like neutral. It wasn't bad. I just think that it's definitely a movie for its time. I get like the 90s vibe, the cult classic feel that it has, the whole like Saw before it was Saw type thing. It just aged really badly. The acting was really over the top and cringy at some points. We're met with like really annoying characters, and overall it just didn't feel satisfying for me. There's so many unanswered questions, and like maybe they'll get answered in like the 2nd and 3rd one, but I think it's gonna be a while before I watch those. Cause yeah, it just wasn't that good for me. On the 18th, I watched The Witch. In 1630s New England, maybe I should drink some water, that might help my fucking throat. In 1630s New England, William and Catherine lead a devout Christian life with 5 children, homesteading on the edge of an impassable wilderness, exiled from their settlement when William defies the local church. When their newborn son vanishes and crops mysteriously fail, the family turns on one another. So this was a rewatch for me, and I'm not sure the last time I actually like watched this movie in full, but I don't actually remember it being like as dark and like creepy as it was. I think back then I was more so focused on like how it's technically like a period piece and just how they were talking and the scenery rather than like what was actually happening in the movie. Yeah, there's just scenes that were genuinely off-putting to watch, and I do think that it still deserves the hype that it gets. Like, what is it now, like 8 years later? I just really like the way that they built up tension, especially like with Thomason and like Girly. They did her so wrong, and I understand. I would become a witch too if my family treated me like that. I also watched Spoonful of Sugar on the 18th. Millicent, working on her thesis about children with severe allergies, is hired to babysit little Johnny, a sickly, mute child who suffers from every allergy under the sun. So I may or may not have fallen asleep during this and let my friend fill in the blanks. So we're gonna act like that didn't happen, but I think that is also a good indicator of how I feel about this movie. This was a movie, and it was a weird one at that. It was really weird, it's really boring, unlikable characters all around. It just felt like a very cheaply budgeted horror movie that didn't know what it was doing. Or maybe it did, because maybe that was the point. Maybe we were supposed to feel very uncomfortable. It just didn't do it for me. That's all. On the 19th, I rewatched The Menu. We're not gonna talk about how many times I have seen this movie now. I think that's the third time. And it's not even like I'm like obsessed with it. I just like kept rewatching it with different people. So yeah, the heat came on. I'm sorry if you hear the air, but I'm not stopping. On the 23rd, I watched Suspiria. Young American dancer Susie Bagnon arrives in 1970s Berlin to audition for the world-renowned Helena Markers dance company, which evolves to the role of, oh my god. You know, I just realized I forgot to like edit this description that I put in, and it's very excessive. Basically, she becomes lead dancer, and they accuse the dance company. People start to accuse and suspect the dance company of being witches. Alright, so before I say anything about this, I will start by saying that no, I have not seen the original, so I do not have anything to compare it to. I have heard that it is vastly different, so is it really comparable? I don't know. Regardless, holy fuck, this movie. The imagery, the visuals, immaculate. I loved all of it. The first dance scene with Susie and then like the parallels of what was happening to Olga in the other room. Chef's kiss. It was done. It was just so good. I will say it did feel like a little bit too long and drawn out for what it's worth, which is why I gave it like a 4 and not like a 4.5 or a 5. I do think it could have been like a little bit shorter, or things could have been like tightened up, you know? But other than that, 10 out of 10. As predicted, I did not finish it all in one go, so hi, I'm back. Little outfit change. Let's continue. On the 24th, I watched Black Swan. Black Swan follows the story of Nina, a committed dancer who struggles to maintain her sanity after winning the lead role in a production of Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. I honestly have no idea why it took me so long to watch this movie, because like y'all know my gay emo ass back when I was like 13 when this came out in 2010 ate this shit up. At least the trailers. I ate the trailers up because of the whole, you know, gay scene, Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis. But then again, probably the reason why I couldn't watch it because I did not have access to it at 13 years old in 2010 without my parents knowing something. So that was a weird little tangent. That's besides the point. Anyways, this movie, so good. I don't know what it is, but like Natalie Portman just gets it. She strives for perfection. Nothing is good enough for her. I can completely understand how overwhelmed she feels with everything. I don't know. It was a good movie, and I get it. And I have to take a fucking shit right now before I explode. On the 25th, I watched Misery. After a serious car crash, novelist Paul Sheldon is rescued by former nurse Annie Wilkes, who claims to be his biggest fan. Annie brings him to her remote cabin to recover, where her obsession takes a dark turn. My fucking, like, voice? Stephen King. This man, he gets us fangirlies. Like, I hate it because you low-key could honestly compare Annie to, like, any girl in any fandom, and also some gays, and, like, she would fit right in. Besides the psychopathic tendencies, I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing. Nor would I say that I was rooting for her, but I will admit at one point I have been so obsessed with something that I, too, wanted to take a mallet to it. So, Kathy Bates is iconic. Let's move along. On the 26th, I watched Kill List. 8 months after a disastrous job in Kyiv left him physically and mentally scarred, ex-soldier turned contract killer Jay is pressured into taking a new assignment. I'm not sure how I feel about this movie. I really don't know. I gave it a 3 because it wasn't an awful movie by any means. It just kind of felt like 2 different movies mushed into one, and like the director tried really hard to make everything cohesive and work, and it just didn't. And like, I'm not the only one who thinks this, because I definitely had to like look up the plot synopsis afterwards, and I was reading other people's reviews. A lot of people said the same thing that I thought, which was that it felt like the director was doing too much and it all just kind of became a big convoluted mess. It was almost like he wanted to make a really cool like spy action hitman movie, but then also decided I'm gonna throw in some cult activity at the very last minute, and it just didn't work for me. So yeah, not much to say about this one. On the 27th, I watched Predestination. A temporal agent embarks on a final time-traveling assignment to prevent an elusive criminal from launching an attack that kills thousands of people. This movie? Seek help. What the fuck was this? Like, I get it. That's probably supposed to be my reaction after watching this, of course. But like, what? My brain hurts. The description of the movie was very misleading. I thought I was getting into a whole other ballpark, but that's definitely not what happened. This curl right here, I'm gonna chop you off. You're pissing me off, dude. I just knew it was gonna take a really weird turn when the guy at the bar started doing his monologue, and then he just kept going, and I was like, it's been literally 40 minutes at this point. I don't know. On the 30th, I watched XX, or just X, I don't know. Filmmakers Jovanka Vukovic, Annie Clark, Roxanne Benjamin, and Karen Kusama present 4 horrific tales of terror. I did not like this. Plain and simple. I don't want to dwell on it too long. All the films in this movie were directed by women, and maybe I would care about that if any of them were good. I think they all had pretty good, like, plot ideas. They just weren't fleshed out enough, and because, you know, they were so short, I couldn't feel any connection to any of the characters. A lot of them could not act either, which really took me out of the immersion of it. There wasn't reasonings or explanations for anything happening in the movie, so it kind of just felt like everybody in it was just like, in every clip was like really over dramatic and just making awful decisions for no reason. It was just a lot of disconnect and disinterest for me, and by the time like the 3rd short film came around, I was already checked out. Alright, we're finally into April now. On April 1st, I watched Dead Snow. A party of 8 Norwegian medical students travel to a remote Arctic mountain for an Easter weekend filled with skiing and relaxation. After one in their group disappears, a mysterious local resident tells the remaining visitors that during World War II, a battalion of Nazi soldiers disappeared into the nearby woods and their zombified corpses remain on the prowl in the area. This was a fun watch. Nothing too serious about it. It was just very silly, fun, campy gore. I think it was done pretty well. Pretty straightforward with the plot. And it's definitely something that you should put on with your friends if you kind of just want to like shut your brain off and have a good time. I also watched Knock at the Cabin on the 1st. While vacationing at a remote cabin in the woods, a young girl and her parents are taken hostage by 4 armed strangers who demand they make an unthinkable choice to avert the apocalypse. Firstly, I would have loved for them to just shown more of the natural disaster things. I think we've reached the age of movies where it's more realistic and attainable for you to show me consistent, obnoxious, apocalyptic vibes of the world ending. And secondly, I'm not entirely sure what the twist was supposed to be in this movie. I know M. Night likes to have some kind of twist in every one of his movies, and I'm just like, spoiler alert, was it the 2 gay dads? Is that what the twist was supposed to be? Or was it the fact that they were just stubborn, rightfully so, and didn't want to sacrifice one of them, and then like all the mass destruction ends up happening, and then they finally decide to sacrifice one of them, and then it all stops, and so it was kind of all almost for nothing. I'm starting to second guess my 3-star, but it's not old, so I'll take it. On the 5th, I watched The Other Lamb. A girl born into an all-female cult led by a man in their compound begins to question his teachings and her own reality. This movie just kind of solidified more of why I don't like religion, so we'll start there. And as much as I love the revenge trope for women, I just hate that it always kind of has to be because of something sexually exploitative. It just sucks. But I get it because, you know, they're in a cult. It's well within reason for that to be a plot point. All I gotta say is that homeboy got what he deserved, and I do think it was a really pretty movie. The one thing I will say is that the main character, I forgot what her name is, but she literally looked like a female version of Danny Gonzalez, and it really took me out of the movie. I could not pay attention because I was just like, that's Danny Gonzalez. On the 5th, I watched The Columnist. Columnist and author Femke is flooded with anonymous nasty messages and death threats on social media. One day she has enough and decides to take revenge. This was good, actually. I really enjoyed this. I kind of wish there was more gore to the killing scenes and that Femke didn't make such stupid decisions, but overall it wasn't a horrible watch. I watched All Eyes on the 8th, a disgraced podcast newscaster stumbles upon an eccentric farmer who claims to have a monster living in the woods near his house. This one was also surprisingly good, especially for it being like low budget and not really well known. I think they did everything really good. The acting was good. Like I said, a lot of low budget movies aren't really good on the acting aspect of things. But yeah, it was a really original storyline and nothing really felt too cringy or over dramatic. It's very good, would recommend. I also watched Infinity Pool on the 8th. Guided by a seductive and mysterious woman, a couple on vacation venture outside the resort grounds and find themselves in a culture filled with violence, hedonism, and untold horror. A tragic accident soon leaves them facing a zero-tolerance policy for crime. Either you'll be executed, or if you're rich enough to afford it, you can watch yourself die instead. So yeah, whoever thought of that nipple scene, go to hell. Mia Goth, we love her. Alexander Skarsgård being a pathetic little man. You know, I was gonna say love that, but I actually did kind of feel sorry for him. If I kind of mean like a lot, I was like, this man does not deserve this. But overall, yeah, it was really good. It was a really original plot. It kind of took me a bit to like fully understand what was happening, but once I got it, I got it. And I like the fact that it was like supposed to be like a trippy mindfuck, and I definitely felt very akin to Possessor, which would make sense because it's the same director, and I thoroughly enjoyed that one as well. Thankfully, these last 3 movies are rewatches, so we can just kind of zoom on by. On the 22nd, I watched Scream, rewatched Scream. Scream follows a high school student, Sydney Prescott, and her group of friends in the fictional town of Woodsboro, California, who become the targets of a mysterious killer in a Halloween costume known as Ghostface. Of course, I talked about it earlier in this video. I love Scream. I don't have to say too much about it. Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard. Need I say more? Need I say less? Cool. On the 23rd, I rewatched Saw. Photographer Adam and oncologist Lawrence regain consciousness while chained to pipes at either end of a filthy bathroom. The 2 men realize they've been tracked by a sadistic serial killer named Jigsaw and must complete his perverse puzzle to live. Once again, Saw is one of my favorite franchises. I don't care how ridiculous, convoluted, obnoxious, over the top, whatever the movies get. I don't care. I don't care. I love all of them. I don't care if it's obvious, and I don't care if it gets cringy at some points. Although I will say, that was probably like my 10th time rewatching it, and for some reason, the scene where, I don't know, I can't think of the guy's name. 2 of the dudes, Detective Tapp, and then the one janitor, whatever guy who worked at the hospital, were like racing to the building where they're like chained up and everything. The fucking edits were so dramatic. That's all I had to say. And then I also rewatched Apostle on the 24th. I feel like there's, like, this whole video, there's been something in my fucking eyeball. Prodigal son Thomas Richardson has returned home, only to learn that his sister is being held for ransom by a religious cult. Determined to get her back at any cost, Thomas travels to the idyllic island where the cult lives. This is also another movie where I don't really, like, I remember watching it definitely, but I didn't remember a lot of things from it, and I didn't remember like fully understanding it. But now that I fully understand it, and it was the second go around, loved it. Really good. Another movie that just solidifies why I don't like religion. That's all I have to say. That's another short one where I'm just like, not much to talk about. Religion, ew. Cults, ew, but I love watching about them, you know? Watching about them? Why is that not sound right? Let's just get into the ending of this video. So yeah, that's all. This was definitely a longer video to film, obviously because I had to like bunch March and April together, but I hope it was somewhat enjoyable for you. I tried to keep the reviews short while also giving my honest opinion and going a little bit in depth with them. Obviously some were more in depth than others, but I don't know why I'm explaining all this to you guys. You guys don't care. I'm sure as like time goes on, I'll figure out how to do things more properly and keep things interesting. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!